Okay.
You know, when you get a cold or a sore throat or a cough, what do you do for it?
Want to do something because you're miserable. And in today's world, we'll do anything so we don't have to suffer and take some magic pill if we have to.
So do you take a Tylenol or an ibuprofen?
I wouldn't.
Not
You'll learn about that in a minute.
Yeah, because this British study shows that neither of these medications provide any advantage, but instead they actually interfere with our immune response, and they can actually prolong the symptoms of a cold, and they can even get worse and lead to more serious respiratory infections.
Right. I think we had enough trouble when we started, when we were talking about these drugs. You know, we're a drug culture. We look for the quick solution because we want to take care of ourselves. And when you look at the side effects of these drugs, Vicki, it's horrendous to start with.
But everybody thinks that Tylenol is the easiest one, you know, like that's the safest one to take. But
I'd say another way, it's the least dangerous one to take. And some of the things that we see from just Tylenol, we've talked about in some of our previous videos, things like GI bleeding, which you wouldn't expect, or liver toxicity, which most people know, or problems with loss of hearing. Or if a mother is pregnant, takes it for a whole month, there's psychomotor retardation in a lot of the kids. This is not an innocuous drug.
And then if you take an ibuprofen or any of those drugs in that family of the nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, you can get things like GI bleeding and strokes and heart attacks. I mean,
kidney failure.
Yes.
Right. They're not safe drugs to take. When you've got 30,000 people a year in this country alone dying from the effects of NSAIDs, the nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs that include Aleve and Motrin and Celebrex, and drugs that have been taken off the market like Vioxx and Bextra, and there are 300,000 admissions to hospitals every year. It's not a small deal.
Well, the other thing to be aware of is that acetaminophen, which is Tylenol, is hidden in many other medications, especially cold medications. It's in the cough syrups. It's in the, I don't know, all those cough medicines.
It's easy to OD.
Read the ingredients.
Right. It takes about 15 grams of Tylenol in one dose in one day to cause liver failure that can lead to a transplant or death.
So how much is in one Tylenol?
350 milligrams, something like that. So you'd have to take 10 of them would be 3.5 grams, 30 of them. Take the bottle. But, you know, if you want to commit suicide, that's not the way to go because that's a long, slow death that takes weeks to months. And you might be saved with a liver transplant, and you don't want all the complications and side effects that come from that.
Yeah, and like I said, it's in many of these other medications so that it can add up to that 15 grams in a day easily.
Right.
Really.
Now we're looking at this study. Okay, this study was done at the University of Southampton in England on 900 patients, Vicki. And in those 900 patients, they found no benefit from these drugs either individually or together. So, and the way
together would be worse.
Well, there were more side effects, but it didn't do anything to make these people feel better. And, of course, it does nothing for the cold itself. So what's the point of it?
Well,
even the placebo effect wasn't
everybody's
much.
Conditioned to do something. You know, I can remember years ago before we started learning about all these healthy things.
Right.
I used to take cold medicine when I'd get a cold.
Sure.
And I can remember thinking, you know, actually this makes me feel worse, but I'm supposed to take it, you know.
Right.
But there are healthier ways to do it. Like, first of all, getting enough sleep, drinking a lot of liquids, maybe using a humidifier. Actually, in the study, they were talking about how people would burn themselves from doing steam inhalation, but you can't burn yourself with humidifiers because that's actually cool water.
Right.
But, you know, you can take some extra vitamins and herbs, and you could get some acupuncture. And there's a lot of choices out there.
Now, think about it for a minute. Do you think the pharmaceutical industry didn't know this? You really think they didn't know this? They certainly didn't volunteer it, and it reminds me of the importance of realizing that the pharmaceutical industry is a business, and its primary purpose is a return on investment to their stockholders. And if they can sell you something and it makes money, that's the primary criteria they use, and they've proven it over and over again. And we patients are conditioned to think that this is a good thing to do because it may possibly help us based on the direct-to-consumer ads that we're seeing on television and magazines and in newspapers.
Well, I know one thing that that can be helpful is vitamin D.
It
And
can
most
be.
people think of vitamin C, but vitamin
Well,
D can also be very helpful.
Well, a lot of people feel that the influenza that everybody's talking about every year is a vitamin D deficiency disease. And that's because in the wintertime we don't get vitamin D because the sun UVB rays don't put out much UVB, and that's what we need to make vitamin D. So most people have a drop in vitamin D level from what's already low to a level that's extremely small and not able to provide the immune defenses that we need to cope against colds and flus.
The other thing is, too, is that if you have a sore throat, a really good idea is to take zinc lozenges.
Right.
And another thing is you can make a ginger tea yourself. Just heat up some water and chop up some ginger and put some lemon and a little manuka honey in there.
Yeah.
And that's very soothing to a sore throat. Also, slippery elm can be helpful for a sore
There
throat.
are lots of remedies that work, but let's look at this at the basis or at the final analysis of what this study means. If the article comes out and says, look, these drugs, which we all assume are safe, which aren't, don't help us, and they put us at risk for feeling worse and being exposed to the side effects of the drug, what are we doing? I think we better rethink this.